Within the tightly knit State Department, the death of U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens is a deeply personal loss. And you can see and hear the grief in the faces and the voices of the people who knew him and worked with him, including the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton.
Today, many Americans are asking, indeed, I asked myself, how could this happen? How could this happen in a country we helped liberate, in a city we helped save from destruction? This question reflects just how complicated and at times how confounding the world can be. But we must be clear-eyed even in our grief. This was an attack by a small and savage group, not the people or government of Libya.
Secretary Clinton also says violence like this is no way to honor a religion or a faith. And you're in the Situation Room happening now. President Obama vows that justice will be done in the killing of the United States ambassador to Libya and 3 other Americans. But who was behind the attack? The House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Congressman Mike Rogers, he's standing by. Ambassador Chris Stevens risked his life to help Libyans overthrow a dictator and lost his life in the city he helped to save. We're going to hear from those who knew him. And Egypt's new leader speaking out without one word of condemnation for the attack on the U.S. Embassy there. We're going live to Cairo. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room. The United States is vowing to track down those behind the bloody attack on the American consulate in Benghazi, Libya. The U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans died after the building was set ablaze by a rocket-propelled grenade.
We will not waver in our commitment to see that justice is done for this terrible act, and make no mistake, justice will be done.
U.S. sources say the attack was planned in advance by a jihadist group. The FBI is investigating, and dozens of U.S. Marines have been sent to beef up security for Americans in Libya. CNN's Jumana Karacha is on the phone. She's joining us from Tripoli, Libya right now. Jumana, tell us what happened based on all of the evidence, all of the reporting you're doing. Jumana, I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can't hear me, I'll try to fix that and get back to you. I think we've lost connections with Jumana. We're going to get back to her. Let me walk over here. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, is standing by. He's been fully briefed on what's going on. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Wolf. Thanks for having me.
Based on what you have been told and all the information you have, what you can share with our viewers here in the United States and around the world. First of all, who did this? Who killed these 4 Americans?
The actual identity, we're still working through the final details of exactly. I think we're getting close to being able to identify the group that is responsible for this. But it was clearly a coordinated attack, a well-coordinated attack, I might add, that was specifically planned to do and accomplish what you saw, unfortunately, unfold in Benghazi.
Was it an al-Qaeda-led or inspired operation?
You can tell by the signature there, and for months we've seen al-Qaeda in the Maghreb looking for Western targets. That was all across northern Africa. We have seen certain activities that certainly lead you to believe today that it is an al-Qaeda-affiliated group. There are still some fuzzy details that I think we'll have resolved within the next few days to have a for sure and for certain. But clearly it has all the hallmark of a al-Qaeda style event.
Was there any chatter, as they say, or any indication that something like this was about to happen at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi?
You know, we didn't get the warning you would hope to get in an event like this, so we could have prevented the loss of life and you know, with a horrible tragedy for losing a U.S. ambassador, Mr. Stevens. We think that we'll be able to go back and take a look again. We're going to re-scrub all of that. That's what, unfortunately, we'll need to do to make sure that we didn't miss anything. But I don't believe so. I don't believe there was some smoking gun that was missed leading up to this. And there wasn't that kind of chatter that would lead you to believe that this event was happening on this day with this specific target. I didn't see anything like that. I don't think our intelligence services have. But we're going back to make that scrub to make sure we understand fully what the picture was leading up to the event and subsequent to the event.
Because it does look, at least based on everything I've heard, as a pretty sophisticated assassination effort to kill the United States ambassador. So here's the question. Was it timed to coincide with the 11th anniversary of 9/11?
You know, I'm an old FBI guy, Wolf, and I got to tell you, I don't believe in lots of coincidences all on the same day. So it certainly looks that way to me. There are differences of opinion as we stand here today. And remember, we're going to have more details. The story we'll understand all the pieces to this puzzle within days of the event. But right now, it certainly appears to me that the significance of this date was important. We knew that Al-Qaeda for years had a fixation on the 9/11 date since the original attack on the United States. So it wouldn't be implausible to think that they could plan an event. And by the way, an event like this just doesn't come together. It's not something you throw together in a day and say, we're going to run out and do this. This was a very well sophisticated, coordinated event. I got to believe that this was timed to happen on this date, but we don't know that for sure as of today. That's just Mike Rogers looking at what we know from history and what the facts I've seen, making that conclusion.
What we're hearing, Mr. Chairman, is that some of the protesters who showed up at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi were upset by this anti-Muslim film that's now out there on the internet, but that this actual killing mission, this assassination attempt and successful assassination plot had nothing to do with this anti-Muslim film.
And I believe that's right. And I would be also careful, even on the Egyptian portion of this, that film played a role, but we're not exactly sure if this wasn't an information operation. Remember that in Cairo, there had been protests for some time at that particular place. There certainly were some extremist groups that we knew were participating and organizing and stirring up those protests. And what we saw from the cartoon incident is that when they were published, the violence wasn't really conducted for months after that. And it was because of this information operations conducted by extremist groups to try to use that as a vehicle to get people to conduct acts of violence. We don't know for sure yet today, Wolf, but I'm highly suspect of the timing of certain issues, questions we don't have answered, and the fact that there may have been an information operation designed around filtering into these protest groups to attack the embassy on that particular day. Again, we're going to know more in the days ahead, but I would be a little bit hesitant to say it was all because of this particular video that this happened. I think there's a lot more questions we need answered before I'd come to that conclusion.
Yeah, and you don't believe in coincidences as a former FBI agent. I don't believe in coincidences necessarily either. So here's the question. The attack on the U.S. Embassy in Cairo coming on the anniversary of 9/11, the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi coming on the anniversary of 9/11. Is there any connection between these two attacks?
As of today, I can tell you of no connection between those two events. But you know, again, something could change. Here's the other part of this. Remember, there's encouragement for these franchises of Al-Qaeda around the world to conduct operations. So they may get a general, opportunistic command of, hey, on this day we would like you to do something, and then they would take their internal planning from there. So you could say in some cases that there may have been a general belief that that day was important and they should coordinate any attacks on that particular day without the Egyptian faction and the Libyan faction even knowing either one. So there's a lot of areas for confusion here if you're looking at it from the outside. At the same time, there may have been. We just haven't seen it yet.
We're out of time, Mr. Chairman. One quick final question. Yeah. What does it say to you that the president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, issues a statement but does not condemn the attack on the U.S. Embassy in Egypt? And I raise the question because the U.S., as you well know, provides Egypt with about $1.5 billion, with a B, billion a year in various forms of military and economic assistance?
Well, we're going to have to ask some really hard questions. Remember, this new Muslim Brotherhood-led government violated the treaty, really, with Israel by putting tanks and heavy armament into the Sinai. They've made pretty sweeping, damaging statements to that relationship and made other concrete decisions. Why wasn't the external security force better prepared and doing more to keep those folks off the wall in our embassy in Cairo? We are going to have to lay on the table some very hard talking points, one of which is the aid that we give to Egypt. Now, I wouldn't rush to take it away, but we certainly need to make conditional changes here in our relationship with this new Egyptian government if we're going to have a relationship that wants to move forward and doesn't want to degrade and devolve into what could be at least soft on jihadists who are starting to believe that they have the opportunity to freedom to do acts in places like Egypt and around the world.
Mike Rogers, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Wolf. Thanks for having me.
I think we've reestablished our connection with CNN's Jomana Karacha. She's on the phone joining us from Tripoli, the Libyan capital. Jomana, if you can hear me, tell us what your reporting has suggested. What exactly do we know happened in Benghazi at the U.S. consulate there?
Well, Libyan sources here have been giving conflicting reports of what actually happened. What we know is coming from senior U.S. sources saying it was a rocket-propelled grenade that struck the consulate, setting it ablaze. The staff in there were facing a fire inside the building and heavily armed attackers on the outside. We are also hearing that Ambassador Stevens and 3 other staffers who were killed with him were separated from the other staff members as they tried to escape to the roof of the building. The ambassador and 2 other employees, including a regional security officers, were in a safe room in the building as it burned around them. U.S. sources are saying that there were attempts to go back into the building and rescue them, but they were unsuccessful. Foreign Service member Sean Smith, according to these sources, died of smoke inhalation inside the building. And it also appears Ambassador Stevens managed to escape from the building, but it's not clear what condition he was in when he got out and how he died.
I know the Libyan government has condemned the attack, the killing of the United States ambassador and 3 other Americans, condemned the attack on the U.S. consulate. But here's the question. Was there a Libyan military or police presence there to protect this diplomatic compound?
Yes, Wolf. When this story broke yesterday, we had eyewitnesses on the scene who were describing what was going on there as a front line. They said that Libyan security forces, along with, today we're learning, with U.S. security, were battling these attackers, clashes that went on for hours, according to these eyewitnesses. Now, what we're hearing today from the Libyan government, the Libyan parliament speaker, trying to reassure the United States and the international community that the Libyan authorities here are here to provide security and safety for foreign nationals and foreign missions in Libya, something very hard for people to believe right now, especially after this attack and previous attacks that we have seen over recent months targeting foreign missions there in Benghazi, the U.S. consulate itself being the target back in June when a bomb.
Jomana Karacha, I think we just lost our connection, but be careful if you can hear me over there. She was joining us on the phone from the Libyan capital of Tripoli. We're also getting new information that's coming in on how the attack went down. Additional details stand by. We're going to be giving you a minute-by-minute account of what happened. And our colleague one of our colleagues knew Ambassador Stevens for more than a decade. Our State Department reporter, Elise Labott, will share some personal reflections.